Quite recently, I had a comment on one of my videos asking about Donald Burgess, a 93-year-old man from Sussex who was panther sprayed, hit with an asp and tasered by Sussex Police constables, who then later went on to die. Donald was said to have had a knife in his hand at the time of the incident, but the most interesting thing about this story, which I have reported on before and will link to the previous reports in the description, was that Donald Burgess was wheelchair bound and had just one leg, so other than wheeling himself at supersonic speed towards the police, would have been very little threat to them at the time. Now, some people will argue that he had dementia, could have been a threat to himself, and that is what was reported. It will likely say that he was a danger to himself, but my research suggests that dementia sufferers are most likely to harm themselves in the first 6 to 12 months after diagnosis rather than later on. And although that would have been a concern, he was in a care home at the time, so would be unlikely to have had anything more than a dinner knife, which I'm sure he had handled many times before. In fact, so far I haven't been able to find any information on what type of knife it was that he had, but I can say with some certainty it wasn't a zombie knife. The IOPC were tasked with investigating the incident, which happened in June 2022 when care home staff called police to report that a male resident had dementia, had a knife and was threatening staff. When police arrived, they found him sitting in his own room, in his wheelchair, holding the knife. It said that the constables engaged with Donald briefly before one of the constables pepper sprayed the vulnerable pensioner and then hit him with a baton. When he failed to drop the knife, a second constable tasered him before handcuffing him, arresting him and transporting him to the police station. Once they arrived at the police station, a custody sergeant clearly wanted nothing to do with the situation, as Donald Burgess's condition was said to have been serious before he was taken to hospital, which sadly was the last place that Donald Burgess ever got to see, as he died 3 weeks later, having never recovered enough to leave the hospital. Initially, Sussex Police Constables PC Stephen Smith and PC Rachel Komoto, aged 50 and 34 respectively, were investigated for manslaughter. But now it appears the lucky bastards have pretty much gotten away with a serious assault resulting in the death of Donald Burgess by actually only being charged with assault occasioning actual bodily harm. Now, considering a taser and panther spray are included in the Firearms Act as generally prohibited items, this would be like shooting somebody and only getting done for assault even though you killed them. Not going to happen. But of course, police were only doing their duty, weren't they? Using every self-defence method available to them literally moments after arriving on a one-legged man with dementia stuck in a wheelchair. Now, the IOPC have said that evidence did not show the incident caused or contributed to his death. In other words, tasing, beating, panther spraying an elderly man had nothing to do with the fact he passed away just 3 weeks later. I'll let you guys decide what you think about that for yourselves. And although it is possible that he could have died 3 weeks later anyway, it's more than probable in my eyes that the beating assisted him in that. Remember, death isn't just caused by physical injuries. Psychological trauma can cause death too, and I don't mean by suicide. And such psychological trauma would not be picked up on a post-mortem. Both PC Stephen Smith and PC Rachel Komoto will now appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on April the 25th, where they will tell the court that they felt so physically threatened by a one-legged man in a wheelchair that they had to use the full arsenal of equipment against him, when in fact either one of them could have simply sat down with him and talked to him until he calmed down enough to put the knife down. A knife we still don't know the details about. So again, could have simply been a dinner knife. So with the alleged evidence not showing the beating contributing to Donald's death and the charge going from manslaughter to actual bodily harm, which is a less serious than grievous bodily harm, in fact ABH covers injuries that are only just more serious than battery, which as most of us know can be something like a touch or a push. So the CPS thinks that tasering, beating, panther spraying and handcuffing a 93-year-old doesn't reach the threshold for at least GBH. It's that damn protective uniform stepping in to save the day yet again. Anyway, this is one I will be keeping an eye on, and I will of course bring you updates when they're available. Please do consider liking the video, not necessarily because you like the content, but you appreciate the fact that I've reported it. Please share so that anyone who has yet to hear of these developments may also hear of them. And it also helps because many of my videos YouTube won't monetize because of the content of the videos. Therefore, they don't make YouTube any real money, so they don't promote them. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next.